Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at ICE on TryHackMe. Now, this is a sequel to the blue box or the blue room. And again, this is a Windows machine. As you can see, there's a brief description here. And from the header or the banner image, we can see that this is exploiting Windows and privilege escalation. And I can see a Mimikatz or Kiwi logo, Nmap, Metasploit, and exploit DB. All right, so I haven't gone through this. As I've said, the first task simply has to do with connecting to the network. So I've just done that. And this is very, very simple, and we can get started with recon. So scanning and enumerating our victims. So I've already performed the Nmap scan. The IP will be different as I had to, I think the IP has changed. So if I just cat the Nmap results here, you can see that indeed the IP has changed. So my scan options are as follows. Since this is a Windows box, you can see it tells us right off the bat, if we click on connect here, the virtual machine used can be downloaded from this website here. The sequel to the room is Blaster and can be found here. The machine does not respond to ICMP ping, so we don't ping, similar to the blue box. So we can see we use a SYN scan, don't ping, aggressive, scan on all ports, and we output it to nmap.txt. And we can get started with the first question. So I'll just close this up and we can move over to the recon section. So deploy the machine, that's done. Launch a scan against our target machine. I recommend using a SYN scan to scan all the ports on the machine. The scan command will be provided as a hint. However, it's recommended to complete the room RP Nmap, which I will get to. So we'll just hit complete there. Once the scan completes, we'll see a number of interesting ports open on this machine. As you might have guessed, the firewall has been disabled with the service completely shut down. If we analyze this box, we already know it's Windows, and from the SMB port, we can tell immediately that it's running Windows 7 Professional 7601. Service pack 1, and yeah, as for the other services, we can see we have multiple web services. So this is open on 3389, 5357, that is running Microsoft HTTP API HTTPD 2.0, which is universal plug and play. And then we have on port 8000 an IceCast streaming media server. Okay, so one of the more interesting ports that is open is the Microsoft Remote Desktop Protocol. So it's going to ask us what port that is, port it's running on. Do we have that running? MSRPC, there we are, 135. So we need to provide it here. So that's fairly simple. 135. What service did Nmap identify as running on port 8000? Okay, let's go through that. So that's HTTP, I believe. We can just provide that here. First word of this service. So it's asking for the service name. So that's, I guess, is IceCast. Is that a separate word? Yeah, that's IceCast. So let's just provide that now. So that's IceCast. That is correct. So what does Nmap identify as the host name of the machine? It needs to be in all caps. All right, so the host name should be listed here. The host name is dark PC. Okay, fairly simple. Let's put that in. So dark PC, and we hit submit. All right, so the first stage is done. So the recon is done. Looks like we have an issue here where it's saying deploy, which I've already done, which is weird. Have I failed to submit a... all right, so this is telling us MSRDP. What port is it's saying that is incorrect? That's weird. Oh, sorry, that's RPC. My bad, guys. My bad. RDP. We actually scanned through that, through all the ports. We didn't find it running here. So let me just check through this here. RPC, there isn't anything there. Right, so it doesn't explicitly state that it's running on another port, so it's going to be 3389. That's the default Windows port for RDP. So I'm just going to try that 3389. I can't believe I put in the RPC port there. My bad. So 3389. Right. So we can now move over to the gaining access phase. So we can see that the service we're going to be targeting is Icecast, and that's a streaming media player. Exploit the target vulnerable service to gain a foothold. Now that we've identified some interesting services running on our target machine, let's do a little bit of research into one of the weirder services identified, Icecast. Icecast, or well, at least this version running on our target, is heavily flawed and has a high level vulnerability with a score of 7.5. So that's running on port 8000. Let's see if we can access it. The HTTP title script says it doesn't have a title. So let's just copy the IP here, and we'll try and access this on the port 8000. Hit enter. So it says the source you requested could not be found. Okay, so it says this version is heavily flawed and has a high level vulnerability with a score, a CVSS score, I think, of 7.5 or 7.4, depending on where you view it. What type of vulnerability is it? So let's just run a quick search exploit search. So that is Icecast, and yeah, it looks like we have various vulnerabilities, and we can see we have a directory traversal. We don't know the version yet, but if we take a look at this here, it's going to ask us for the CVE, and it has a Metasploit module, which is we'll actually need to provide. If we take a look at the exploits here, the only one that has Metasploit module is this one right over here. So that is for Icecast version 2.0.1, and this is a header overwrite exploit. So what we can do is we can open up CVE details, and we can look for Icecast, and they give us some information regarding the exploit we're looking for. So Icecast, it's a great website to actually go through vulnerabilities. Let me just try and zoom in here. We want to look into vulnerabilities, and the score is set to 7.5 or 7.4. So this is a buffer overflow. Let's take a look at the other ones, and this is this looks like the header overflow targets 2.0.1. Let's open up this CVE here. This one has one Metasploit module, and if we scroll to the bottom, Metasploit module is related to CVE 2004 1561, and that is the Icecast header overwrite, which is the one listed here. So this is our exploit. So let's see if this is actually the one. So what's the question here? What type of vulnerability is it? Let's open this up here. I'm guessing they want a direct copy of what type of vulnerability it is. Integrity. If we take a look, this is execute code overflow. Let's just put that in there because they're asking for the type. Let's make sure that is submitted correctly. All right, so that is correct. The CVE number, which I'll just copy one more time here. Just copy the text. Yeah, there we are. And we'll put that in there. And we'll hit submit. All right, that is correct. Now that we've found our vulnerability, let's find our exploit. So we already know it's on Metasploit, so we'll just hit complete there. So we'll open this, we'll open up the Metasploit console, so MSF console, and we'll search for Icecast, and the exploit path they're looking for is the Metasploit exploit path. So that's the one here. It's target version 2.0.1, Windows 32-bit. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's see if that's loaded up. So search Icecast, and this is the exploit here, and that's the header overwrite. So we'll copy and we'll hit use and paste in the module there. All right, so that's working. The default payload there isn't a default payload configured, so it's going to default to this one right over Windows Interpreter reverse TCP. So that's the basic one. I think I'll stick with that because I don't know the architecture of the target yet. So it's going to say, after Metasploit is started, let's search for a target exploit using the command search Icecast, which we've already done, and we'll put in the module name there and hit submit. All right, let's go ahead and select this module for use. We've already done that. Following the selection of our module, we now have to check what options we have to set. Run the command show options, which is done. What is the only option required? All right, so we need to set that. So show options. So the only option we need to set up is our hosts, and the port is configured correctly. So set our hosts, and we'll put in the IP here. So I'll copy that, and we'll put that in, and we then want to set our L host to my IP, which I've noted down here, and we'll put that in there, and that should be fine. So we can hit run, and it's gonna hopefully give us a interpreter session, which it does really quickly. So that is done. So the answer format, so that is our hosts, I believe, was the option we needed to change. That is the case. So first, let's check that the host option is set to our IP, which is done. So we'll hit complete there, and we can move over to escalation. All right, so woohoo! We've gained a foothold onto our target victim machine. What is the name of the shell we have now? So that's a interpreter shell, I believe. Right, that is correct. What user was running that icecast process? The commands used in this question and in the next few are taken directly from the Metasploit room, which I will cover. Right, so if we say get user ID, that it tells us the server username sysinfo. We can see that it's the host name is given. It is a 64-bit machine or box, and Windows 7 6.1 build 7601 service pack 1. The interpreter session we have is 32-bit as stated. So we'll just get a quick shell here, and who am I? We can see that we're logged in as Dark PC as the user Dark. Okay, so let's try and put that in there. So what user? That is Dark. We hit submit there. And the build is 7601. Submit there. And now that we know some of the finer details of the system we're working with, let's start escalating our privileges. First, what is the architecture of the process we are running? Interesting. So we'll just go back into our interpreter session, and we'll look for the process that we're currently logged on as. Icecast is right over here. So Dark PC icecast2.exe. So it's going to ask us right over here, what is the architecture? It's x86, I believe. So let's hit submit, and that is telling us that is incorrect. It is x86. What is the format of the answer? Hint sysinfo. Yeah, I've already done that. Is it asking for the entire string of text? Right, architecture, the one we're currently logged in as. Let me just read the question one more time. What is the architecture of the process we are running? Which we've already done. The architecture of the process is x86, right? So let me just put that in there. Answer format x86, submit. No, all right, x64 then. I guess I don't get. All right, so that's an incorrect question, because the process we are running in is x86 anyway. Now that we know the architecture of the process, let's perform some further recon. While this doesn't work on the best, it doesn't work the best on x64 machines, let's now run the following command. So we're looking for the exploit suggester to look for potential ways of escalating our privileges. So I'll put this in the background, and we'll search for that. So search for suggester, and this is the module right over here. So we'll just use that. Show options, and our sessions tell us we're on session 1. So we can say set session 1, and we can then hit run. So let's see what local privilege escalation exploit it actually gives us. So that's done. So it's going to say running the local exploit suggester will return quite a few results for potential escalation exploits. what is the full path starting with exploit for the first returned exploit? Okay, so we have to wait for the first one. And then the next question says, what, now that we have an exploit in mind for elevating our privileges, I'm guessing that's the first one. Let's background our current process. We've already done that. Take note of what session we have. That's simple. Go ahead and specify the local exploit. And we then need to set the session number, which is fine. Okay, so this is just, this just deals with the module itself. So this is still collecting the local exploits. I'll just wait for this to complete. All right, so the module has completed running, and it's gonna, again, the first question asked us what the first module was. So we're just gonna put that in there, and I'll get rid of that colon, and let's submit that. So it looks like this is the exploit that they're saying we should use. So I'm just gonna use it, and let's see what results we get. Okay, so this bypasses user access control under event viewer. That's as far as I can tell. So show options. If I list out the information regarding this particular module, so you can see this module will bypass Windows user access control by hijacking a special key in the registry under the current user hive and inserting a custom command that will get invoked when the Windows event viewer is launched. It will spawn a second shell that the user access control flag has turned off. This module modifies the registry but cleans up the key once the payload has been invoked. The module does not require the architecture of the payload to match the OS, which is great. Okay, so that means we're pretty much good to go in regards to the architecture. So set session 1, and then we can hit run, and that's going to start the reverse handler. So user access control is enabled. Let's see if we can actually get a interpreter session here. All right, event viewer is executed successfully, waiting the 10 seconds for the payload to execute. So if we hit complete there and we specify the path there, we set the session. All right, now that we've set our session number, further options will be revealed. What option? All right, we need to actually set up our listener. Right, I actually forgot to do that. My bad. We need to set up our listener IP. So set lhost, and that is the answer. So we'll just set the option and then answer that question. And then we hit run. And that is going to be lhost right over here, and we got the IP, which is fine. And after this last option, we can now run our privilege escalation exploit. Run this using run, and that's done. Following the completion, let's see if it's completed. It is complete. We get a interpret session, and we can hit complete. So it asks us to check our sessions. So I'll just put this in the background. Yes, that's session 2. So sessions, we can see that session 2 is the one that we should be working with. So sessions 2, and this should, I think, if we say, let's see. We should have some privileges, so that's still using the same, we're still logged on as dark, the user dark, which is fine. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. So we can now verify that we have expanded permissions or extended permissions using the command getPrivs. So that will list out the privileges that we have. GetPrivs, and it looks like we have so set backup privilege, impersonate privilege, load driver. So that's pretty much, I'm not sure why they're asking us to do this. So we'll just say, what's the answer? Format. What permission listed allows us to take ownership of files? All right, so it's going to be listed towards the bottom. So set take ownership, I think that's the one. So we'll copy that. I'm not really familiar with the DLLs in regards to Windows. All right, so that is the correct one. We can then move over to looting. All right, so looting, you can see we have Mimikatz or Kiwi. So learn how to gather additional credentials and crack the saved hashes on the machine. Okay, so prior to further action, we need to move to a process that actually has permissions that we need to interact with. The permissions we need to interact with the LSAS service, the service responsible for authentication within Windows. Okay, so if we say PS, let's see what processes we have running. Okay, so we're looking for LSAS, which is right over here. And what are they saying here? So first, list the processes which we've done. We can see processes being run by NT authority system as we have escalated permissions, even though our process hasn't. Okay, so I understand that. That makes sense now. In order to interact with LSAS, we need to be living in a process that is the same architecture as the LSAS service, x64 in the case of this machine, and a process that has the same permission. So we're looking for a process with a 64-bit or x64 architecture that is running a 64-bit and that has the same permissions as LSAS, which is NT authority system. And then I'm guessing we need to migrate into it. Okay, so it's saying the printer spool service happens to meet our needs perfectly for this, and it'll restart if we crash it, which is great. What's the name of the printer service? So we need to provide the name of the printer service that we're going to be migrating into. So that is spool. I'm guessing this is the one right over here. So we'll provide it spool sv.exe. That is 64-bit and it also has NT authority system privileges. So we'll put that in here. Hopefully that's correct. I may be wrong. That is correct. So we need to migrate into that process ID. So it says, let's check. Hold on. So migrate to this process with the command migrate and the process name. I think we can just use the process ID. So migrate 1368 and we hit enter. So hopefully this is able to give us a 64-bit interpretation and NT authority privileges. So again, if I say sysinfo, you can see we now have 64-bit or 64 x64 Windows interpreter session here. We then say who am I and NT authority. All right, excellent. So that's done. We've successfully been able to elevate our privileges. So I'll go back into my interpreter session, and then now we check what is the name. So let's check what user we are now logged in as with the user, with the command get user ID, right? So that is a interpreter command, and we can see the server username is NT authority system. Okay, so we can provide that here. Hopefully that is correct. There we are. Now that we've made our way to full administrative permissions, we'll set our sights on looting. All right, so I'm guessing that's credential harvesting. So Mimikatz is rather an infamous password dumping tool. That is correct. Load it now using the command. That's very simple. Just say load Kiwi, and all right, so that's done. Kiwi is loaded. What do we need to do now? So loading Kiwi into our interpreter session will expand our help menu. So that's just saying open the help menu. Okay, what command allows us to retrieve all credentials? I'm guessing that's with Kiwi. I think that's creds all. Yeah, that's the one. So let's type that in. Creds all, submit. That gives us all credentials. Quite familiar with Kiwi. So we get so LM hash. We get the hashes, the digest credentials, which tells us that the password for the user dark is password 01, which is fine. And then of course, that's pretty much it in regards to credentials that we gather. Okay, so run this command now. What is dark's password? So we'll just copy that here. We've already got that. Copy that there, and we'll put it in here. Dark is logged in as so Mimikatz allows us to steal the password out of memory even without the user dark logged in, as there is a scheduled task that runs icecast as the user dark. Okay, so that makes sense. It also helps that Windows Defender isn't running out of the box. take a look again at the PS list. This box isn't in the best shape, right? So that's pretty evident that it's quite unsecure. If there was Windows Firewall, Windows Defender running, things would have been quite different, I think, at least. All right, so it's now going to say what command allows us to dump all of the password hashes on the system. So I'm guessing this is going to be hash dump, and we'll hit submit. That is correct. So this is the post-exploitation stage, where we actually didn't get a. Let me just complete that. Okay, so we can now move on to the post-exploitation stage. So that's completed as well. Right, all right, so while more useful when interacting with the machine being used, what command allows us to watch the remote desktop users in the desktop of the user in real time? I'm not really sure I remember that. That should be somewhere here. So that should be here, screen share. That's screen share. Okay, so that's simple. Screen share. All right, what if we want to record a microphone, which should be here, record mic, and we'll put that in there, and we'll hit submit. Okay, to complicate forensic efforts, we can modify timestamps of the files on the system. What command allows us to do this? Don't ever do this on a pen test unless you're explicitly allowed to do so. That is correct. This can potentially damage the integrity of files. This is not beneficial to the defending team as they try to break down the events of the pen test after the fact. So I'm guessing this should actually tell us how to do it here. Timestamp, that's the one. So the manipulate the file mace attributes. So timestamp, put that in there. So Mimikatz allows us to create what is called a golden ticket. So that's in regards to Kerberos authentication. So this allows us to authenticate anywhere with these. So essentially, golden ticket allows us to authenticate, generates a Kerberos ticket for us that allows us to authenticate on any domain or throughout the domain, right? So it asks us what command allows us to do this. So that should be under the Kiwi help menu. So golden ticket attacks are a function within Mimikatz that abuses a component to Kerberos, the authentication system in Windows domains. The ticket granting ticket in short. Golden ticket allows us to maintain persistence and authenticate as any user on the domain. Yeah, so we can go on into the Kiwi commands, and we're looking for the golden ticket create right over here. That allows us to generate a golden Kerberos ticket right here. Okay, so I'll put that in there, and we can run this just to see if we can specify the domain. So I can say that is dark PC. So that is the name of the domain. Actually specified the domain. We'll actually take a look at that in a second. Firstly, let me just take a look at this. One last thing to note: as we have a password for the user dark, we can now authenticate to the machine and access it via remote desktop. So that's 3389, that's the port it was running on. As this is a workstation, would likely kick whatever user is signed onto it if we connect to it. However, it's always interesting to remote into machines and view them as the users do. If this hasn't already been enabled, we can enable it. So let's see if this has been enabled. I think I have Remina installed, which is an RDP client. The IP address is as follows. I'll just put that in there. The user that we have, let me go back into my terminal here. We got the passwords. So the domain is dark PC and the user is dark. So we'll put in the password. Let me just copy in the password there. If I put in the IP, that's correct. So it will connect to 3389. Yes, we want to accept the certificate. It's going to be dark. The password is right over here. Just copy that, and we'll put that in there. And the domain is going to be dark PC, and we hit OK. It's going to say connecting, and yeah, looks like we get RDP access. And this is the Icecast version 2 control panel. I think it allows us to start and stop the server. So there we go. We now have access to the target box through RDP. And we can again go ahead and navigate through the system as the user would. So I'm just going to close this up, and we can go back into the challenge here, and that is completed. All right, now it's going to say extra credit. Explore manual exploitation via code exploit found on exploit.db. I don't know if I want to check that out right now. Probably make a follow-up on this. Let's take a look at the code here. This is C code, obviously. So Icecast remote code execution. What do we need to provide? Let's see. Yeah, I'll probably need to do this separately. So again, manual exploitation is something that I want to cover, but the video has been going on for about 30 minutes now. So I'm going to actually follow up with this next, and then we can move on to the next box, which is Blaster, and we can move over from there. So as you advance in your pen testing skills, you'll be faced eventually with exploitation without the usage of Metasploit. That is correct. Provided above is the link to one of the exploits found on exploit.db for hijacking Icecast for remote code execution. While not required by the room, it's recommended to attempt exploitation via the provided code or via another similar exploit to further hone your skills. We'll be doing that next up. That being said, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comment section or on our social networks on Twitter or LinkedIn, and our username is HackerSploit. If you want to engage with us or get into a discussion regarding the techniques used in this video, you can join the thread that is going to be listed below on our forum at forum.hackersploit.org, and we can have a quick chat there, or we can engage regarding this particular video and the techniques highlighted within it. That being said, that is going to be it for this video, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. I just want to take a moment to thank all our Patreons at patreon.com/hackersploit for all the support. Your support and help is truly appreciated. You keep us making newer and fresher and better content. So I just want to say thank you to all the Patreons. So thank you, Murph the Surf, Daniel Bork, Jonathan Kyle, Adam Mack, Jamal Guillory, Tafim Bari, Jeremy Nikolai, Mary Hara, Max Chow, Dustin Umpress, Michael Hubbard, and Jerry Speds.